Welcome everyone to the Day Shift. It's part of the USBG Portland's Save Our Shifts campaign, where we got some really great sponsorship money from people, and we're putting together these webinars and producing a lot of educational videos. And the whole reason for this is a lot of us are out of work, or the restaurants have been slowed down a lot recently. So we're putting these little informational guides together and just kind of getting bartenders together to talk shop. And it's a really great program. You can check it out at www.saveourshifts.com. You can go on there and apply to do one of our night shifts, which is a really great program where we put together educational videos on how to make cocktails. And we've got some really wonderful sponsors that are paying out for those. Or if you're interested in being a panelist on one of these day shifts, which we're also paying cash money for these too. So if you're into things like bartending and money, check it out. Today's sponsors, we've got Hardshore Gin right here in Portland. They do some really great stuff. It's a pretty full-bodied gin, lower on the botanical count, so you get a really robust flavor profile from that. And it sits at about 92%, so it holds up really, or 92 proof, excuse me, holds up really well in a lot of drinks. And another sponsor today from a little bit further away is Amaro del Etna. I'm a big Amaro guy. This is one of my favorites. You know, you want something bitter in a glass, or to just, if I may, how I do it is I just shoot it. I'll be honest. It's great. They're Sicilian, right in the foothills of Mount Etna, which, you know, blew up and covered a whole lot of area with ash a bunch of years ago. So today we are talking with Kristina Gaumont from Sonder and Dram. We also have Adam Couch Sousa. He's over at Blyth and Burrows. We've got Harper Fendler, who is over at Hunt and Alpine here in Portland. Also, editor? Yeah, with the Resurgam online zine. It's a really interesting project, so you should definitely check that out as well. And we also have Isaac MacDougal with us today, owner, operator, and all-around great guy at Cocktail Mary here in Portland. Thank you all for joining us. And today's discussion is ice. I think ice has become one of those things that it's almost like the last step where over the last, say, 10, 15 years, the bar world has really made a lot of great leaps and bounds. And it seems to be the one area that everybody's now going on. We know that, you know, it's not just shaking your drinks and pouring it into a cup of ice anymore. You know, some of us have pretty developed ice programs. I know Blyth and Burrows is putting together a really interesting ice program right now. You want to go into that at all, Couch?
Yeah. We always meet, or we used to meet once a week back when things were running, and at the end of each meeting we'd compile a wish list, and right at the top of that was always a fine bell machine, which essentially is a directionally freezing ice maker from the bottom up that produces 4 25-pound blocks a day. And so we finally got that, and we're using essentially hand carved for every cocktail that calls for it. So we'll freeze out 4 25-pound blocks per day. Use a bandsaw to break it down into give or take 2 by 2 cubes. They're actually like 2 by 2 1/4, but you know, you get some really wonderfully clear, like perfect ice, and if you temper it right, you know, it just disappears in the drink. It's a pretty nice little system.
Yeah, they just look great. Do you notice how does that affect the dilution rate in the drinks at all? Are you noticing like a slower melt time with that when it's just so dense like that?
Totally. So I've tested them kind of back and forth and just sit there and pour spirit over it, reuse the same cube. And normally if I'm using just like a normal kind of silicone 2x2 cube, they'll last about 15 minutes before they shrink down to pretty much nothing. And those big cubes will last upwards of 25 to a half an hour.
Oh, wow. Kristina, are you guys using any larger format ice cubes over at Sonder and Dram? Or are you kind of sticking to the traditional?
We do, I mean, we do use the larger format ones for like our old fashions and things like that. We use the silicone ones, but our ice machine, I mean, in Lewiston, we're a little behind the times. It seems like it's a slow, progression. We're a little behind Portland, but at a lot of the places I worked prior to Sonder, the ice was kind of like McDonald's ice, where it just diluted instantly. It broke down so quickly. And at Sonder, that's like one of the first places in Lewiston that's actually got one of the really amazing ice machines that just, the dilution's amazing, and it breaks down the way it's supposed to. So, yeah.
So when you mentioned the dilution there, if you want to go a little bit further on that, what are you noticing that's, say the difference in when you're shaking it versus the old school McDonald's ice?
So, when we're shaking it with the Sonder, the ice that we have at Sonder, a lot of the times when it's not breaking down instantly. It's with the McDonald's ice, it's like the second you put it in the glass, it's already like starting to dissolve. Like it lasts maybe a couple minutes and then it waters your drink down an intense amount, where typically you want it to water it down a little more slowly so that you can enjoy the flavors. And
that's good.
Just cools off the drink. Yeah.
I think I'm fully adopting the phrase McDonald's ice for shitty ice at this point. Like it's definitely where I'm going. Isaac, when you're working on new drinks over at Cocktail Mary, do you consider, the amount of ice that you're using, say, in the shaker when you're shaking something? I think that dilution has a huge impact. Do you consider like the amount of ice that you're putting in your tins each time and factor that into the drink?
Not particularly the amount of ice that goes in the tin. I think it's more just a timing in the shaking or the stirring. We've got a Hoshizaki like square machine that we use, and I actually just got a freezer like yesterday.
Oh, cool.
That's about to become a lot more of a consideration. I've got some silicone molds on the way, but I've never had the opportunity to have the time to really develop a super awesome ice program. But it's exciting to see. Like, I didn't know Blyth and Burrows had that ice cube maker. That's awesome. I'm going to talk to you guys about maybe buying a 25-pound cube off you every once in a while.
Yeah, for sure.
But I've been using cold draft for probably 15 years now. So it really become like that McDonald's ice. The second you get it into a shaker, it totally. That's, I think, when you more have to consider how much ice you're actually putting in there, because it melts so quickly.
Yeah.
That you kind of would, if I had that kind of a machine, I probably would measure the amount of ice I was putting in the shaker and just shake it till the ice was gone.
Yeah.
And then that's how you get, I would even maybe like weigh the ice. But I feel like when you've got the square, like the inch cubes, I'm so used to using them that it's really a matter of like, you can hear and kind of feel when the drink is diluted properly. And then
that's great. Harper, whoops, say that again.
No, go ahead. Typically when I'm stirring a cocktail, I'll put a couple regular cubes in and then crack one or two with my bar spoon, just to speed up the dilution when stirring. But that's almost like that's a hack just to make the dilution happen a little faster when you've got a stirred cocktail, but keep the clarity in the beverage.
Yeah, I like that move. Just hitting it, especially if you've got a bigger chunk of ice that, it also looks cool. It's always nice to mash something across the bar.
Yeah, it includes the guest in the process.
And I'm gonna, Harper, I know you've done a few pop-ups. You did that really great one around the Christmas time that unfortunately I was working, but a lot of people after they left there quite inebriated came to see me at the Cow. Did you, when you're doing pop-ups like that, do you run into, what are some of the challenges that you have like with the ice? And I mean, was that at Grace that night?
It was at Grace. So that was, fortunately for us, Grace is still operating as an event space. So we were able to get in there beforehand, check everything out. Their ice machine was still up and running. So we were able to use that. But one of the issues that we were facing was one of the wells that we were using wasn't draining. So that meant that there was water building up the bottom, which was encouraging all the other ice to melt even faster. So we had to figure some stuff out on the fly, figure out how to purge that well in the middle of this, kind of bonkers pop-up that we were doing. But just the ability to pop in and see what a place has. A lot of the things that we're trying to do with future pop-ups before the pandemic and lockdown happened was to work with places that don't have as well-known a cocktail program. And if they don't have as well-known cocktail program, then their ice program isn't going to be quite up to par as well. So, we talk to people, we see what they're able to do, we see what they do for their drinks in the meantime. And it's one of those things where we kind of then tailor our cocktail menu or whatever we want to do for them to what they have available and what we can also provide. So we have gone to the lengths of like making our own large blocks and doing that. We think about doing like pebble ice or like crushed ice for things where we know it's going to be breaking down, so we can make it small. That way it's more focused on the dilution in the drink. We also like to use these larger silicone cubes. So what we can use with those cubes is we can put that in a shaker. It's going to encourage the drink to aerate faster without having to use as much ice. So that's another thing that we like to do. It also helps us use less water just in general.
Yeah, which is always nice. When you said you were making your own large blocks now, you doing like the cooler method through the, that
Boil the cooler method. It's one of those things where, just you have to rearrange your freezer and know that like, okay, that's, I'm not going to open it for, a couple of days and just see how it comes out, and do it days ahead just in case, when you're trying to get it out, it doesn't shatter or doesn't break. That way, you're able to do it again if you need to.
Yeah, the tempering is a huge part of it. And I'll do a little shameless plug. A couple months ago, pretty much right when this, COVID thing shut us all down, I had just started my own ice company. So not really a sponsor, but Good Day Ice Company. If you are looking to buy some ice, we are out there, and feel free to get a hold of me. But anyway, we're doing a very similar thing where large insulated containers and just doing gravitational freezing, where it's almost the opposite of how the Climb Bell over at Blyth and Burrows and Via Vecchia uses, where those Climb Bells freeze from the bottom up. And then you have the water that kind of pushes off, but when you're using these insulated containers, it's just freezing top down, and you can kind of remove those out before they freeze completely. And it's a fun, interesting process. You can change gears a little bit. Instead of talking about these large, huge blocks, maybe get into the idea of smaller ice. The pebble ice and crushed ice and drinks and how that affects. Somebody at home mentioned, if we're calling the shitty McDonald's ice, maybe we could start getting our crushed ice from Sonic that they use their little thing. What have you found, Couch, when you're using crushed ice or pebble ice? How does that sort of affect the overall drink, or what style of drinks do you find crushed and pebble ice work?
I mean, the obvious answer is going to be like any tiki, because it kind of warrants it.
Yeah.
But when I'm building cocktails that are going to be over pebble ice, you need to be really cautious about dilution. Like, you're not going to take and blast your pearl diver with like a full 12-second shake over enough cubes because you're going to immediately dilute, and then throw it over ice. It's going to dilute faster just because of the surface area of the crushed ice. So what I'll normally do is like a whip shake, just like 1 or 2 cubes, and just real quick blast it to incorporate all the ingredients. And then you let your crushed ice that's already in the glass act as your chill and your dilution.
Cool. Do you mind going a little bit further in explaining what the whip shake is for maybe some of the people at home that are unfamiliar?
Whip shake is kind of a term when you just throw a couple cubes in there and just real quick, just like whip back and forth. And it doesn't take too much. You're not after chilling. You're not after dilution in that sense. You're just after getting that cube or two to just bounce around in that tin and kind of incorporate the ingredients. You're looking for kind of a homogeneous strength as opposed to building it, but you don't really need to chill or dilute. So it's just a little bit of ice. Some people even do like a small handful of crushed ice just to blast it, like a bunch of BBs in there.
Yeah.
But just real quick, incorporate, and then strain over ice.
Cool. That's great. I'm going to do a quick little reset for some people that just joined, just started watching at home. Today's day shift is brought to you by Hardshore Gin and Amar Del Etna. I think after this really long day of work that I've got, I'm going to just mix them both in a glass and see where it goes. But we're joined today with, from Blyth and Burrows, we've got Harper Fendler from Hunt and Alpine, and Isaac MacDougal from Cocktail Mary. Actually, we got a little question from somebody at home. Kristina, you were saying you're using the large silicone molds at times for like your old fashions. Are you using those ever to full on shake your drinks or stir? Are you using kind of like your traditional bar ice there?
We use the traditional bar ice a lot of the times. When the only time that we usually really use the big cubes is for fashions or Negronis. We just don't really have the freezer space to have a lot of those on hand.
Yeah.
I mean, we've definitely worked nights during the winter time where, you know, we're pulling out, like, we're double stirring old fashions like crazy, and we've pumped out like, you know, 40, and then we're just out and we have to use our other ice. But they're great and they look beautiful and sexy, but I mean, you know, we just don't have the freezer space, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge with every bar. I mean, like Isaac, you just mentioned that you just got a freezer, and that's always one of those next steps is like, now how can I utilize this? How can I maximize this? What are some of the considerations? Now, you said you are thinking of getting, are you going just kind of like bigger 2x2s? Are you looking at like a longer Collins cube and stuff like that?
For now, just doing the 2x2s, but partly that's because most of my business right now is to-go cocktails.
Yeah.
But the other thing that it's going to come in super handy for is that I'm doing like martinis to order to go. And you can't really batch out martinis because everyone likes their martini their way. Right. So I'm keeping the vodka and the gin in the freezer. That way, if someone, you know, orders it like in real time at the door, I can still make it and just dilute it with actual water. But the frozen gin or vodka will keep it down to the temperature you want to get it at. So that's kind of the hack that it's coming in handy for me too. I'm also selling Deer Dairy ice cream.
Oh, cool.
So actually, he lent me that freezer so I'd sell his ice cream. So it's kind of a little, you know, copacetic relationship there, but it's huge. So I think my biggest problem now is like being realistic about how much freezer space I'll have in the future when I actually purchase one that will fit in, because right now it's out in the bar where people would be standing. Yeah. Which, you know, obviously when this is all over, I can't have a freezer there. So, so I gotta try to rein myself in and not, you know, keep it pretty specific so that I don't end up disappointed in the future.
That's good. You can just put a tablecloth over maybe, and then you just have a whole nother table to, you know, utilize and just have people as a sidebar for you. Yeah. I lost my train of thought there. Harper, when you're working at what are some of the ice program stuff that you're doing at Hunt and Alpine right now? Are you using the silicone molds as well?
Yeah, so we use the silicone molds for the 2-inch cubes. Our old fashions, one of our most popular drinks, especially when we have proprietary bottles. People get really excited about that, looking at our whiskey program. But besides that, we don't have one of the cold machines. We are just kind of using general cubes, or usually like 1/2 to 3/4 inch cubes that we're making for all of our drinks. And we're just really conscientious about that, especially when people fill into Hunt. There isn't a ton of airflow and the ambient temperature rises like crazy. So all the bartenders there are really obsessive over not only the ice content and how quickly it's melting, depending on what the night's looking like, but also the glass temperature as well. So just thinking about all aspects that go into making the drink and making sure that it comes out as the right temperature. What Couch was saying about using crushed ice and pebbled ice with like tiki drinks is the same with juleps.
Yeah.
All those drinks are coming from hot climates, and so they like to have that high amount of ice. So when we're crushing ice to order, we want to make sure that it's cold and it's going in, and it's not going in as melting before we put it into the drink.
Mm-hmm. What do you this is always the thing, when you're doing the crushed ice, you just throwing it in the Lewis bag and hammering the shit out of it?
Yeah, we've got a solid top of one of our coolers, one of our keg coolers. It's a nice divot in it from just nights of smashing bags of ice onto it and just going to town. It's also a great way to relieve stress if like you're completely weeded and people are waving and calling at you. Just go over and just pound on some ice for a little bit and you're gonna feel a lot better. And people love the show. It's great.
Yep, you're getting your Blantons with crushed ice now. That's the way to go about it. And also Lewis bags are one of the most annoying tools. It took me like 12 years to find one that didn't just blow out after like 2 services. So anytime I get one that makes it through like a whole like menu cycle, it's I feel like I just need to frame it and let it retire gracefully. With the I think one thing that you've kind of all touched on, the logistics of incorporating these different types or different forms of ice. You mentioned like if you get crushed on a winter night and it doesn't matter how much you've prepped, you're running. If you run out, you run out. How far ahead are you having to start scheming with your ice prep? Like, are you just filling them up at the end of every shift and just trying to keep them constantly going, Kristina?
Yeah, that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you can do because in order for it to freeze. So
that
little guy, we try to keep on it every night.
Who's your little friend there?
This is Sophie. She won't have it any other way other than sitting on my lap. There could be food on the table.
I think one of my favorite things of this show is I've met so many people's little dogs and cats. It's been a really nice little moment there. Anybody playing around with any sort of freezing things into the cubes, or actually freezing juice and letting that work in, like a popular thing like Spanish gin and tonics where they're freezing things in the cubes? Have you done anything along those lines, Isaac, in the past? Or
I mean, not here, because Cocktail Mary just opened in November, so we really kind of basically got through winter and then closed. Mm-hmm. But I did, I actually wanted to speak to the julep thing because I have this antique ice crusher, like
nice
ones with the steel. So my plan was to use that because my mom always had it. She'd always make juleps for the Derby every year with it.
Oh, cool.
So I was hoping to use that this summer, but I'm going to have to probably, bank that till next summer. I don't necessarily think I want to add that into the mix now. But also, I was hoping to do like molds, like ring ices and molds for punches this summer too. That was kind of a plan that I had on the back burner. Cause I just think that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. It's a good throwback thing too. Like when you see the old like Better Homes and Gardens.
Like a Jello mold, but
the Jello mold ones. Yeah. With the,
I still want to do like savory Jello mold as food, but I just don't think anyone's going to buy it. And then I'll just be eating like shitty Jello salads all day.
I don't know.
The ambrosia salad.
Yeah. Or just like cheddar ham and Dijon mustard and ice and like gelatin.
What the hell is wrong with you?
I don't know. I love to waste time.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've learned here is we've all got a lot of time, so this is the time for ice. Couch, have you guys played around with, suspending anything in ice cubes or, different flavored ice? I just picked up the aviary book and there's an insane amount of like flavored ice stuff in there.
Yeah, aviary's ice cube is otherworldly. We've done like aesthetically, we had some directional freezing molds that we were able to kind of like suspend flowers and fruits in the ice. So essentially they were just like, we're all familiar with like the cooler method. They basically just had a perforated tray that sat around the top rim of it. And so you'd only get like the top 2 inches of ice, but you could pop the thing out and just pop out pre-cut cubes. Mm-hmm. They're actually super useful and pretty good. And we could put like flowers and things in there, but just for aesthetics. As far as flavored ice, I've only played with it a little bit. Mm-hmm. I found that the easiest thing to do is like soft citrus, things like grapefruit juice and orange juice.
Yeah.
And also, like, if you're going to put in, like, super tart things in your ice, it's going to imbalance as it dilutes. Mm-hmm. But I think that the grapefruit juice and the orange juice thing is pretty cool because you can actually shake with it. And instead of adding dilution, like in water sense, you can actually add dilution in the juice sense. So you can give your cocktail more body mm-hmm. at the same time as you're kind of chilling it. I think we had one cocktail a couple summers ago where we did something like that, but we haven't really fleshed that one out yet.
I was using I think cold brew coffee cubes for something, and it almost worked like a quick rapid infusion type thing. Like you weren't getting a ton of flavor to it, but it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've done some stuff with like the coffee cubes are a great thing to do, or like tea cubes are really fun ways to add like floral or lighter elements into a drink, or like a punch if you're looking to just set your punch up and then you want to throw your ice in and keep it cold. If you throw in tea cubes, it's a really fun way to kind of let a drink evolve or let the punch evolve over time as well.
I think the punch aspect is a really great application for it, especially if it's going to be sitting out for the duration of a party, and it allows it to kind of dilute. And like you said, if you get the ABV right, you can actually freeze a little bit of booze into some of this stuff if there's enough other like citrus and sugars there to kind of balance it out. Another question from at home, and this is always the danger one. Anybody ever play around with dry ice? No, it's a fucking bad idea. Don't play around with dry ice unless you're a scientist.
Now, I helped a friend out years ago. He used to be one of those kids party mad scientist things. Yeah, I helped him out. He was Dr. Moonrocker, and I was one of his assistants, and he had dry ice. And even then, I was like, "Nah, you got it. I'm good." Yeah.
I'm kind of glad that trend at least has calmed down and is dying out. Yeah. We're kind of getting to the end of today's talk. So before we close it out, there's one little segment that we always like to do called What's Good Here, where I ask each of the panels, what's good here? I can start with you, Kristina. Next time I'm up in the Dirty Lou, what should I grab from you at the old Sonder and Dram?
So if it's during the summertime and you're feeling like some hard shore gin, we have a really good beverage called Summertime and the Living's Easy. And so it's got the hard shore gin in it. It has Combier pamplemousse. It also has regular tonic. And then we just kind of layer it in a glass, like a beautiful Spanish goblet glass. We put grapefruit in there, and we put some cucumber, and it's delicious and refreshing, and yeah, it's delicious.
Sounds like a good day drinker.
Yeah.
Couch. What's good here? What should I grab?
Lately
Not too sweet. Not too sweet.
Not too sweet. You know, not sweet gets across your knuckles just for like tattoo. We've been playing around with a lot, like our highball game lately, just because it's summer and fuck yeah, highballs, but also like forced carbonating drinks, which some of the new ones that we've played around with are super fun. We get this like strawberry cachaça coriander highball, and I'm super stoked on it. I think that drink slaps. Man, it's just like light, crushable. Have like 30 of them and fall asleep on your deck and
That's cool.
pick up sunburn.
I love the forced carbonation stuff. I remember when I think it was Isaac, you were doing that at when you were at Manatu there, and I remember specifically one night where I don't know if you were doing a Negroni riff or something in it, and I just like watched like ticket after ticket after ticket go flying in, and I just watched them like, oh no.
I felt like the other bartenders were trying to get back at me for making them system that night. Yeah, so I actually here at Cocktail Mary, I ended up doing I figured out how to kind of force carbonation on draft. So before we closed, I had a gin and tonic on draft.
Oh, cool.
I actually got to work pretty well. So I had a separate CO2 tank that went just to that line. But I kind of gave up on the forced carbonation just because I'm selling mostly to-go stuff now. And I don't know, Couch, are you guys selling to-go forced carbonated stuff?
Yeah, actually, most of our to-go program right now is forced carbonated.
And it seems to be, the carbonation seems to be kind of sticking.
Man, the carbonation is crazy. We're trying to do the, like, long term, we want to figure out how to, like, draft line it. But the corny keg and trying to get, like, the pressures right is proven to be a little bit tricky right now. So what we're actually doing is just using a drink mate, which is like a souped up soda stream, and we'll blast it, funnel it into a 187 and crown cap it. It's a little tedious, but man, the carbonation we can get is awesome. There's some tricks, and you have to be super gentle, but we can get super good carb.
Sweet.
Oh, that's awesome. Harper, what's good here?
So I would miss plug, Cocktail Marys and Blyth and Burrows to-go cocktails are great. Over at Hunt, we're doing that as well. And there are just a wide array of to-go cocktails that we're doing right now. But actually an old drink that, not an old drink, but a drink that I did back at a pop-up a while back was using Harper's barrel rested gin, which I think is a really great thing that it's sold in Maine. It's really, really fun to use. They take their traditional hard shore gin, do it in 3 months in oak. It just gives it this great body, great vanilla flavors that and rosemary. And we did this drink that had the barrel rested, Gonzalez bias sherry, a little bit of dry curacao and orgeat, and that's a great drink any time of the year. When we first made it, we did a sorbet to go with a cranberry sorbet, but it's more effort than it's worth right now. So
Trying to do a Scorpino to go. Isaac, for the to-go stuff, what's good here? What should I get?
I'm gonna do two because we've got like our most popular cocktailer is worried it wasn't gonna do too well because it's kind of expensive, is the Marty Washington, which is Hard Short Gin, which is made on Washington Ave. Root Wild Grapefruit Kombucha, also made on Washington Ave. Fuck, I can't remember what else is in it off the top of my head right now. Campari. And then that comes. It's like $22, but it comes with a full can of the grapefruit booch and then a 200 milliliter bottle of the cocktail. So it makes 2 full 16-ounce cocktails.
That's
pretty awesome. But I may, when I get home in like a half an hour, have a bun, double hopper, frozen beverage machine. So I think this weekend we'll have pina coladas and strawberry daiquiris.
Oh,
yes.
Mixing together, and it's a Miami Vice.
Oh, yes, even better.
So that's what I'm super pumped about right now.
That's what I'm drinking. All right, you throw Miami Vice in that thing. I'm snagging some of those this weekend. That's awesome. I want to thank you all for joining us today. This was great. Couch is just gonna do a big pull of warm gin right now.
Yeah.
There's a little cubes in there. I've been working on it.
I'm gonna bang down some of this. I feel like I literally ate a chicken patty for lunch today, which was a horrible decision. So I feel like the Amardel is the proper way to help that digest. But again, I want to thank everybody. Start with Kristina Gaumont at Sonder and Dram, Couch over at Blyth and Burrows, and Harper, Hunt and Alpine, and Isaac over at Cocktail Mary's. Everybody's doing, look at that. Everybody is doing to-go cocktails at all these bars, so please check them out. And when you go pick them up, wear your goddamn masks and, tip heavily because that's what this is all about. Again, thanks to our sponsors, Hard Shore Gin and Amaro del Etna. And thank you, everybody watching. We'll be doing another episode on this Thursday, 5 o'clock. And pretty much every Tuesday and Thursday, we're doing these. So if you're sitting at home and you're a bartender and want to get in on this and get paid for talking shop, send us a little application. Let us know. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
All right, cheers.